lone Democrat and the lone opponent running against Senator Kennedy right now. The election is getting closer, November 10th, so we're inside 10 months before now and primary day. And Luke is a native of Boyles Parish. He grew up in Bunkie. He is a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy. He has war experience as a decorated fighter pilot in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria. And he is a commercial pilot today working for a major airliner. And he has decided he wants to be our U.S. Senator, along with Senator Cassidy, who's up for re-election in a few years. But the election is November 10th, November 8th rather, 2022. So it's right around the corner, and here is our guest for the day, Luke Nixon.
Jim, thanks for the kind introduction, and thank you so much for having me here today. I'll start by introducing myself a little bit. I grew up in a Boyles Parish, and I'm the son of Mark and Barbara Nixon. My mother is the oldest of 46 grandchildren, and she's one of the first women to graduate from law school who's from a Boyles Parish. My father has harvested every crop that will grow here in Louisiana. He's done that since the day I was born. But I'm also the grandson of Charles Nixon, and Charles Nixon was my hero. He was a B-24 flight engineer during World War II. On his 19th mission, he was shot down, parachuted from the bomb bay doors, captured, and spent over a year as a prisoner of war. He returned home, and like so many of the greatest generation, he didn't talk a lot about his military service. He was a man of great patriotism, character, and integrity. And I remember one day, I guess I was about 14 or 15 years old, he took me out of school, and we spent the morning shooting skeet. He taught me how to drive a stick shift. And that afternoon, he took me riding in his 1967 V-tail Bonanza. And from that moment, he and I's relationship strengthened and matured. I learned more about his military experiences, about his aviation experiences. And I had three goals as a young man. I was going to go to the Naval Academy, I was going to be a fighter pilot, and I wanted to go to Top Gun. I was fortunate enough to be accepted into the Naval Academy, and quite frankly, I struggled a little bit my first year. I was a kid from a small town, Bunkie High School, going to Annapolis with kids from all over the country, all over the world, and I struggled a little bit. But I tell you what, it was those characteristics of hard work, determination, tenacity that prevailed. And on May 25th, 2001, I graduated from the Naval Academy. I walked across the stage. There was President George Bush there to greet me, and I was off to my next adventure, going to flight school. But reality set in very quickly. 109 days after I graduated, on September 11, 2001, terrorists attacked our country, and that single event would shape the trajectory of my military career. I would go on to finish flight school, be selected to fly F-18s, and for the next 17 years I would do so, flying missions off of aircraft carriers in support of operations in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria. I'd earned 3 air medals for my combat service. In 2012, I was named the F-18 Attack Aviator of the Year, and I finished my career here in Navy New Orleans as a commanding officer of the Reserve F-18 Squadron. Along the way, I did get to accomplish the last of those goals. I was selected for and graduated from Top Gun in the spring of 2008. When my military career was finishing, my wife and I knew we wanted to come back home to the state we love. We moved back home to Louisiana 6.5 years ago, and we could not be happier, with one exception. We are not happy with the way our state and our nation are being represented, and I keep reminding myself of what I learned at the Naval Academy. I keep reminding myself of our mission there, to instill duty, honor, and loyalty, to develop midshipmen with the integrity to lead, not only in the military, but as citizens. I think of the words of President George Bush that day on my graduation, to lead with values, both as military officers and ambassadors to this great country, and we're not seeing that right now. We're not seeing leaders with those characteristics. We're seeing them pandering to the worst in us, pandering to our hate and our fear and our division. They are not representing our nation well, they are not representing our state well, and I'll give you 2 examples. Roughly 1 year ago today, on January 6th, Senator Kennedy was given a choice. And so many of us face choices in our life, decision points, where our values are demonstrated. And quite often, doing the right thing is not the easy thing. And he was given that opportunity. He was given an opportunity to tell the truth, to defend democracy. But instead, he chose to lie. He was weak. He lacked the moral courage to do the right thing. He betrayed his oath to the Constitution. He betrayed every American voter who participated in the election. Look, I took an oath to the Constitution as well. I take it seriously because I love this country. And I'm not going to stand by and watch people spit in the face of democracy. I'm also not going to stand by and watch people vote against the best interests of our state. Most recently, we saw an infrastructure bill pass the Senate. Finally, we saw compromise. We saw bipartisanship. We saw people working together to solve problems for Louisiana. Senator Bill Cassidy led that effort. This infrastructure bill was going to rebuild our roads and bridges. It's going to expand internet access to rural Louisiana so our kids can learn. It's going to provide clean water and drainage to our cities. And it's going to help us rebound from these once-in-a-generation storms that seem to hit us just about every year. Now you ask yourself, why would Senator Kennedy vote against those things? I don't know. I can only assume that he's more interested in partisanship and sound bites than in solving problems. And that's been the story, right? A lot is said, but not much is done. Well, that's not who I am. And that's not what I believe in. I believe in leadership, and I believe in teamwork, and I'll give you an example. I mentioned I was an F-18 pilot, and we had long missions. Sometimes we'd fly for 6 or 7 hours in Iraq or Afghanistan, and you came back and you were tired, and you were hungry, and it's those times when you're tired and hungry that, of course, the weather's terrible, and the aircraft carrier's pitching up and down, and you're low on gas, and all you want to do is land that airplane, get on board safely, get inside the skin of the ship, maybe get a hot meal before you go to bed. And that takes a lot of training. It takes a lot of focus and concentration, but more than anything else, it takes a lot of teamwork. It takes the trust and confidence in the mechanics and technicians that repaired that airplane. It takes the trust and confidence in the officers guiding your landing, and it takes a whole lot of trust in the ordnancemen who are uploading and downloading thousands of pounds of weapons. And that takes teamwork, it takes leadership, it takes working with a diverse group of people, all going toward the same mission with different ideas, but all wanting the same thing. And that's not what we're seeing right now. We're seeing division. We're not seeing problem solving. That's not what I believe in, but I'll tell you what I do believe in. One, we need to invest in our state. I was proud of our military service overseas, but it disheartens me to see all of the American treasure that was invested in building roads and bridges and drainage and sewage on countries on the other side of the world. Meanwhile, we try to do it here in the United States and Louisiana where it's needed, and we have people like John Kennedy calling it wasteful and stupid. It's not. It's life-saving storm mitigation that's going to provide an economic boost to our state and provide high-paying jobs to the people of Louisiana. Two, we have to invest in our people. That begins with affordable daycare. We must allow parents, or we must provide parents with affordable daycare so both parents can enter the workforce, providing a family with the economic stability for future success. Two, we must invest in early childhood education. I'm a firm believer that education is the key to unlocking future success. By demonstrating to children the value of education at an early age, we can set them on the path for opportunity. Three, Governor John Bel Edwards' expansion of Medicaid in this state has proven critical, particularly during COVID, protected over 500,000 vulnerable Louisiana residents. We must preserve health care. We must try to lower the cost of prescription drugs. And then finally, we must provide safe communities where families can raise their children in a safe environment where they're free to play and learn and associate with their neighbors. And that comes from funding our police departments so they can execute community policing both safely and humanely. And look, I'll close with this. I'm not looking to pander to the extremes. I believe that the 70% of us in the middle are being overlooked and being screamed over. I've served as an F-18 pilot for 20 years because, well, it was a lot of fun, but also because I love this country. My wife and I chose to return to Louisiana and raise our children here because we love this state. We love the people. We love the community. And both of those, our state and our nation, deserve a responsible leader. I'm in this race because it's the right thing to do. Our state and our nation deserve a responsible leader, a leader with character and integrity, a leader who's going to put Louisiana families first, and I'm confident I can be that leader. Thank you so much for your time. I'd be happy to take any questions you may have. Yes, Blake.
What are your, this is a bit of a wedge issue, I'm just sort of curious what you think about it or what your position is on it. I mean, what are your thoughts on abortion and the government's role in limiting or providing access to abortion?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. To answer your question, I am pro-life. I do believe there are exceptions for that. But look, I'm not just pro-birth. I believe my pro-life position extends to those things I mentioned. One, affordable daycare so that parents can enter the workforce and provide economic stability for their families. Secondly, early childhood education. I said it earlier, but I'm a firm believer that education is going to allow our children to succeed in the future. And I'm a firm believer in not only what we did here in Louisiana with Senator Cleo Field's bill to make mandatory, or to make kindergarten mandatory, but it needs to extend to pre-K as well. And then health care. We must provide affordable, accessible, and quality health care to all Louisiana residents. And the last thing is, look, we need to stop these forever wars. I think sometimes we forget about the tremendous loss of life that is a result of these forever wars, the ones that we've been in Iraq and Afghanistan for 20 years. And something must be done about that as well. Yes?
So knocking off a sitting senator in an environment that's expected to be very difficult for Democrats is going to be a tall order. Talk about why you think you've got a chance to do this.
I have a chance because I believe my background, my experiences, my beliefs are going to appeal to a wide variety of voters. I am confident we will appeal to the base of the Democratic Party, but we're also going to have a strong appeal to independents and moderate Republicans. I'm tremendously confident in that. Additionally, as I talk to people around the state, they are desperate for a responsible leader. Now look, I'm not naive. I know we have a lot of hard work ahead of us. We are facing an incumbent with a lot of money. In fact, when we launched our campaign 12 weeks ago, Senator John Kennedy had $10 million. But I'll tell you this, I don't think people in Lake Charles have blue tarps on their roof. I don't think people in Terrebonne and Lafourche that see their houses devastated and electricity's not back on, I don't think they're super concerned with John Kennedy's $10 million. And I'm confident that I'm the right candidate at the right time to be competitive in this election. Yes?
In fundraising emails from Senator Kennedy, he calls you his socialist opponent. Are you a socialist?
Yeah, that's right. A small-town kid who grew up on a farm in Bunkie, Louisiana, and went to the most conservative military academy in our country. No, I am not a socialist. I consider myself a moderate Democrat, and I am running as a Democrat because I believe the Democratic Party in recent history has done more to advance equal opportunity. I think they've done more to help to protect our most vulnerable citizens, but I am certainly not a socialist.
Are you in favor of the Build Back Better plan that is now being blocked by Senator Manchin in the U.S. Senate?
Jim, thanks for the question. Here's what I'm supportive of. There are three things that are very, very important to me, and I know I've mentioned before, but I'm going to hit them one more time. First, affordable child care. Look, my wife and I dealt with this. When we were, I didn't join the military to make a bunch of money, and I was going all the time from 2010 to 2015 We calculated, my wife and I calculated, I was gone 3.5 of those years. And it was difficult for my wife to raise our children largely alone while balancing that with daycare. And we faced a lot of those choices as well. And I think a lot of Louisiana residents face those same difficult choices. So I am fully in support of affordable daycare for Louisiana families. I'm fully in support of early childhood education, and then I'm in absolute support of continuing the expansion of Medicaid here in Louisiana to protect our most vulnerable citizens. So that's what I'm in support of.
Well, based on what you know regarding that measure, would you support it or not?
Yeah, you mentioned Joe Manchin and Joe Biden. You know, I'm running for the United States Senate. We never saw a full bill reach the Senate. It seemed like at the end it was just this compromise between two people, Joe Biden and President Joe Biden and Senator Joe Manchin. So it's difficult for me to state my position on a bill that I haven't seen exactly what it would look like. But those three things are mentioned are definitely the parts of it that I am full support of.
Well, do you consider yourself closer to, ideologically, to the president or to Senator Manchin?
You know, the person that I consider, if someone asked me to sum my political identity up in as few words as possible, and quite frankly, a politician that I really admire is the governor. I think the Governor John Bel Edwards does a fantastic job of always putting the people of Louisiana over his political party and his politics. So if you ask me to associate my political ideology with one person, I would say it would be the governor. I think we both have similar experiences coming from small town Louisiana. We both have similar military experiences, and I share a lot of his moderate beliefs. So if pressed to compare myself to any politician, that's who I really admire and look up to. Yes, sir.
Your very flattering commentary on Governor Edwards notwithstanding, he did conduct an interview right here with this gentleman, the Jim Inkster Show, in which he said that he did not believe there was evidence to suggest, I'm paraphrasing, that the death of Ronald Green was in fact the fault of state police, and said that in fact the cause of death was yet to be determined. That caused more than a few jaws to drop, particularly in the black community. And obviously as a Democrat you would be heavily dependent, I'm sure you will make that concession, to win, you would be heavily dependent upon the black population. Do the words you just uttered regarding Governor Edwards, do they apply with regard to his leadership of Louisiana State Police, or do you make a separation in that one issue?
Well, as far as the situation with Ronald Green is concerned, and the police involved in that incident, that type of conduct must be held accountable. And those police officers that participated, or not participated, that caused the death of Ronald Green must be held accountable and punished. But I'll say this as well, I never believe in generalizing an entire workforce or an entire population based upon the actions of some. I believe that the vast majority of police officers are upstanding citizens who are trying to do their job and are frankly underpaid. I believe the answer most certainly is not defunding the police. The answer is providing police departments with the resources they need to hire quality police officers. It's providing police departments with the resources they need for the training and the knowledge so that our officers can provide community policing both safely, effectively, but also humanely.
Well, then I want to make a quick follow-up and I'll be done. Do you wish to embrace his statements that he made on Mr. Inkster's show, or do you wish to place distance between those statements that he made on Mr. Inkster's show?
I don't, to be frank, I don't know exactly what he said, and I don't want to, I don't know exactly what he said, but if your question is, do I condone the action of those police officers? Absolutely not, and those police officers must be held accountable for their actions.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
If you were elected, I'm curious what your perspective, well, how you would approach the filibuster. And there's a belief that it's, stymieing anything getting through the Senate. Would you support a wholesale getting rid of the filibuster? Do you think it has some purpose in our democracy? Talk to me about your thoughts on the filibuster.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I do not support abolishing the filibuster. I do believe it is overused, and I do believe it's making the Senate an ineffective body. Here's what I do support. I do support a carve-out of the filibuster for voting rights. It is disgusting to me what we've done with voting rights. That is the very foundation of our democracy, the ability for people to vote. It's the beacon of our freedom. So I fully support a carve-out of the filibuster for voting rights. Yes, sir.
What do you, the other big issue in Congress that is dividing everyone is the voting bill. How do you stand on what they're trying to do with changing the election? Are you familiar with that?
I am. I am in absolute full support of the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. And like I said, it's shameful for something that just recently was so overwhelmingly voted in support of voting rights. And now, again, with that division in our country, and we saw it, a perfect example is January 6th, where we're just telling lies about the results of election, is threatening our democracy. And there are many reasons I'm in this race, but none so more in that very threat, our threat to democracy. And I believe that January 6th was an awful moment for our nation. But look, every generation will have to fight for this democracy. It is fragile. And if we don't keep fighting for it, we will lose it. And that, above anything else, is the reason I'm in this election. Thank you for your question. Yes, sir.
Do we have a democracy or do we have a republic?
Well, certainly by the Constitution, we live in a republic, but we have democratic elections. So yes, we absolutely live in a republic by the very definition. But our elections are like I said, the very foundations of what these geniuses created, this wonderful experiment that we created 275 years ago. And I find what our politicians are doing now to undermine the integrity of those democratic elections, the ones that, look, this last election, we proved over and over and over again, 60 times in fact, that we had a free, fair, and accurate election. And for politicians to describe it as anything other than that, I find not only to be, I used to use the word irresponsible, it's not irresponsible, it's dangerous. And it's a threat to our democracy. We cannot take it lightly. And again, that's the main reason, among others, that I'm in this election, sir. Yes, ma'am.
You're the son of a farmer. Agriculture is the largest industry in the state of Louisiana. If you're elected, what can you do for the farmers and the agricultural industry?
Thank you so much for your question. I tell you what it starts with, I think, is one threat to farming. And look, obviously I'm the son of a farmer. The entirety of not the entirety, a lot of the economy of central Louisiana is based on agriculture. And I take a lot of pride in my experiences with that. But one thing we do see right now that is obviously going to affect our farming industry is the fact that the land underneath us is washing away. Our coast is washing away beneath our feet. And I wish that weren't true. I wish the skeptics were right. But it is. It's happening right now. The future is now. And I fully support what the governor's trying to do to protect us from that. I support our diversion projects, and I think that's going to have a tremendous impact, not only on the agricultural of today, but the future as well.
Senator Kennedy is supported by former President Trump, who won here handily in Louisiana. What can you say positively and or negatively about the former president?
Thank you for a question. I'll start with this. Maybe I'm not like other politicians in that I am very capable of listening to the other side. And I won't disagree with someone just because I don't like them or because on the other side of the party. I am very open to working with other people. I think President Trump, I'll say one thing I think he did well, was he made efforts to reform our criminal justice system. And I think he did that well. That being said, President Trump and I have some fundamental disagreements on patriotism and character. And ultimately, I think leadership, the foundations of leadership, are three things, particularly for a president: patriotism, integrity, character. A friend of mine likes to say that patriotism is how you've used your time, talents, and treasure to improve this great nation. And it can be done in a variety of ways. It can be done if you're a school teacher, or a firefighter, or a community leader. It can also be done, I did it as my time in the military. And I'm proud of what I did in my efforts to improve this great nation, but it's not something you put on the shelf. It's who I am. It's what I believe. It's in my DNA. I believe I have more to offer to improve this great nation, to continue on this path to be this more perfect union. I'm confident I can be a leader to do that. I'm confident that I will represent the state and this nation better than Senator John Kennedy.
He sounded a lot like you sound right now, 18 years ago. But he had an epiphany, and he was about your age at the time. Actually, he's a little older than you are. But anyway, he had an epiphany. I mean, do you think that what you're saying today will be the same philosophy 18 years from now for you, or will you have it?
Oh no, my wife would never let me do that. She tells me every day, my wife emphasizes all the time, you keep being yourself, Luke, be who you are. And my wife or my kids would never let me get away with that. But it does come back to something. Someone asked me, you asked me earlier about my time at the Naval Academy, and I think it took me about 20 years to really appreciate the values that were taught to me there. And frankly, I shouldn't say that. They're values that were reinforced there. I believe the values of truth, integrity, hard work, determination were founded right here in Louisiana, in Walls Parish. And when I went to the Naval Academy, those values were only reinforced. And that's of integrity and truth. And that will always be who I am, and I don't see that ever changing.
I want to ask Southwest Louisiana was devastated with past hurricanes, but it's also one of the fastest growing areas of the state. The Port of Cameron, Sabine Pass, has become one of the top 3 global exporters of LNG in the world. And so I wanted to find out what your stance is on Louisiana's basic oil and gas industry and how the jobs that are come out of that and the revenue for the state versus the Democratic Party and the sides of the clean and renewable energy policies.
I'm so glad you asked that question. I just see a bright and bold future for Louisiana. We are an oil and gas state. We will continue to be an oil and gas state as we fuel this country. But we have so much more to offer. We have this unique and skilled workforce that has generations of energy production. And I believe that it's a false choice to say we're either oil and gas or renewable energy, because we can be both. And we can hold on to our oil and gas industry while also investing in renewable energy, in wind and solar. And I believe that as we embrace both of those, and the governor's been great on this, we're going to see a bright and bold future for Louisiana that provides high-paying jobs and boosts our economy. Look, the oil and gas companies are calling themselves energy companies, and I think Louisiana needs to do the same. We need to become an energy state, not just an oil and gas state. Thank you for your question. Yes, sir.
It's probably more of a local problem, but is there anything that sets off a light bulb in your head about combating all the violence that we've had in the cities for the last few years, really, but really bad in 2021?
There has been a lot of violence, and that's unfortunate. Every Louisiana family deserves to raise their children in a safe community. A community where their children are free to play and not have to worry about violence. And again, I know the answer is not any type of defunding of our police departments. I believe the answer is investing in our police departments so they can do their jobs, so they can protect and serve. They can do so effectively, but also humanely. And that can only be done by giving them the resources and the training needed so they can work with their communities. Because I think as police officers and communities work together, it's going to provide safety for both of them. And look, it's something that, frankly, there's a lot of military relationships to that as well. In the military, we didn't just walk into things without any training. And I believe all the missions I ever went on, if the mission lasted 7 hours, there was probably 45 hours of preparation and training for that. And I think those are the resources, that type of training and knowledge, if we provide to our police officers, they can execute their mission effectively as well.
How much money do you think you'll have to raise to run an effective campaign?
You know, that's a great question. We mentioned how much money John Kennedy has. And again, I'm not naive. I know that I think there are 3 things necessary. I think you need a good message. I think you need a good messenger. And the way it is today, you need a lot of money to spread that message. I'm confident I'm the right messenger. I'm confident we have the right message, but it is going to take a lot of money to spread that. I would hesitate to put a number on that. I can tell you that I have been overwhelmed with the support and encouragement I've seen from people throughout this state. I've been overwhelmed by people's desperate desire for responsible leadership, and I'm really excited about our fundraising. I'm excited about the trajectory it's on, and I believe it's only going to get better here in the future. I'm very confident that we're going to raise enough money to be competitive in this race. Yes, sir.
Are you in favor of President Biden's energy policies, specifically the Keystone Pipeline decision and drilling on federal property?
I'm not. I believe that it adversely affects Louisiana. I believe that we're an oil and gas state, and we must protect those jobs, and it's critical to our economy that we continue to be an oil and gas state. But like I said before, we can't just dig our heels in on this one. We must also welcome new forms of energy as well and be that energy state, because the world is changing, and we must preserve the jobs we have now. We must preserve the income for Louisiana families while also welcoming those new forms of energy, including wind and solar, so we have that bold and bright future for Louisiana.
One more question.
Yes, sir.
Did you endorse the Democrat Party's Russia investigation of Donald Trump?
Frankly, sir, I'm not trying to dodge it, but I don't know enough about that investigation to comment intelligently on it. I frankly just don't know enough about it to answer your question intelligently, but I'll be happy to look into it and get back to you at the nearest opportunity. Thank you for your question.
Once you're elected, you'll get back to it.
It took 2 years.
Yes, sir.
What's your vision of how the United States is going to get its integrity back relative to the world?
By electing responsible leaders like myself.
I think I heard you say that Senator Kennedy did not uphold his devotion to the Constitution. What were you talking about?
Well, you know, people can disagree on a variety of topics. In fact, it's critical that we have 2 healthy parties. I think it's important that we have a healthy Republican Party. I think it's important that we have a healthy Democratic Party, and that we find the best solutions for our citizens and our residents through compromise. But we all must have the value for the truth, particularly when it comes to our free, fair, and democratic elections. We can't agree upon something that is so blatantly true, and meaning the election of Joe Biden as the President of the United States of America, then where are we? If we can't agree upon democracy, then really nothing else matters. And his blatant disregard for the truth to score some cheap political points and to get himself on cable news is, like I said, I used to use the word irresponsible. It's not. It's dangerous and it's a lie.
He's not alone, though. In our delegation, every one of the members of Congress except for Bill Cassidy and first Edward Richmond and then Troy Carter, they all voted to negate the election as well, to say that it was an invalid election. Your thoughts?
It's disappointing. It's disappointing. I mean, I will always tell the truth. And I'll say this. John Kennedy's an intelligent man. He has 2 law degrees from elite universities. He knows better. He knows better. And that makes it worse, because he knows better. And he did it anyway. As far as speaking about the others, I am disappointed in what they did. I certainly find them at fault for spreading a lie. And, but I have more issue with John Kennedy because I know that he knew the right answer and he chose not to do it.
Do you think it's paramount that you debate him? He would not debate his opponent last time. Is that a necessity for you, for your campaign?
I'll let the experts answer what is a necessity or not. I will say this, I would certainly welcome the opportunity. I would absolutely welcome the opportunity to ask him why he betrayed our democracy, why he chose lies, and why he continues to vote not in the best interest of Louisiana. And I would very much look forward to that opportunity. And I'm confident that when we get enough support and we get enough enthusiasm, that he's going to be forced to do that. And I very much look forward to that opportunity. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I got one more.
Yes, please.
John Kennedy switched from the Democratic Party and became a Republican. Have you always been a Democrat, or you switched at all?
I have. I've always been a Democrat. I was, my mother's a Democrat. My father has been an independent his whole life, but I have always been a registered Democrat, and I continue to be so to this day. I can, yeah, I've always been a Democrat, yes, sir.
When did you last vote for a Republican?
The last time I voted for a Republican, I voted for John McCain for President of the United States in the election against Barack Obama. I believe they were both great candidates. I have to admit, I was younger, and Senator McCain and I do have some common beliefs, so I may have been a little bit biased there, but we went to the same school, both fighter pilots. I believe that John McCain, while I don't agree with him on everything, I find him to be a man of great integrity. I find him to be a man of patriotism and a person that, frankly, you can have reasonable disagreements with him because you know he wants what's best for our nation. And I did vote for John McCain as President of the United States. Yes.
It took Congress more than a year to allocate federal funding for the devastation in the Lake Charles area. I'm wondering, I mean, I guess I'm just wondering sort of your thoughts on that delay and, you know, whether you think, you know, Louisianans can trust that the federal government will be there when they experience a disaster like that.
No, they can't. Of course they can't. That's been proven. Look, people don't trust Washington to solve their problems because Washington doesn't solve their problems. And that's a perfect example of something we can all agree upon, that when our residents are devastated by a natural disaster, that our elected representatives should put their party aside and work together to find solutions. That's so painfully obvious to all of us. But instead, we see people not even trying. We see them spending more time fundraising and more time on cable news than working with members of their own delegation to take the blue tarps off of houses in Lake Charles. It's absolutely unacceptable. And again, that's why people have lost distrust in their elected leaders, because they should. Because their elected leaders fail to look out for the best interests of those they represent. And I fully plan on changing people's idea of elected representatives, because I believe we can do good. I believe that government can do good to help our residents, and I plan on being part of the solution, not part of the problem. Thank you for your question.
I think that's it. So.
Thank you so much for your time.
I see a few new faces, and just a reminder that we do this every week, so we'd like to have you back. You're always welcome, and hope to see all of you again soon, as in next week. By the way, are we meeting next week? No. See you in 2 weeks. Next week is Martin Luther King Day, so January 24th.